Greetings everyone and welcome to my site. Today we have a really great treat, an interview with a man I consider to be a really good friend of mine. He's a fellow volunteer at the Marion Federal Penitentiary with me. Also, he is into heavy duty meditation and Buddhism and so forth. And I'd like to welcome Randy Osborne
Hi, Bill.
to the show. Howdy.
Yeah,
How you
hello,
doing,
everybody.
sir? Yeah. Randy, tell us a little bit about what you do when it comes to meditation and so forth, if you'd like.
Well, I have been practicing meditation for about 25 years.
Wow.
And my interest in it actually goes back farther than that. I started reading books and poetry, starting with the beat poets, Jack Kerouac,
Oh, yeah.
and Allen Ginsberg,
Yeah.
and Gary Snyder, and that led me to read a lot of Alan Watts and Ram Dass, and on from there back in the early 70s.
Yeah. I've heard you
And
mention that
but
a lot.
even during those years, I really wasn't practicing meditation, but I was taking in the worldview of Buddhism and Hinduism and Eastern religion and Eastern teachings, and it really it came to my life. I experienced a kind of a crisis period about 1990, and at that was the time that really something just spurred me to really start actively meditating, and I did, and it's made a big difference in my life, I think, since
Right.
then.
That's always been for me. I've run into the trees in life, and meditation was a good fallback,
Yeah.
and still is. I use it constantly. I meditate different than other people. Every few seconds, I touch in, and I get little flashes of
Right.
very interesting things. So, where's your current practice? Do you have a sanctuary at home? Do you,
What you just said is similar to the experience I have with meditation. For a long time, I had a small altar and a space in my home where I sat, and I sat regularly. It was usually at night before bedtime, but I also had a much more formal, I would say formal practice in the sense that I was regular.
that helps.
I would create the space, light the candle, light the incense, sit down, and go, sit for a set period of time, usually 20 minutes but sometimes much longer. Sometimes I would just sit for an hour or more. And I did that for a long enough period of time, combined with a long period of intensive reading and study on the various traditions that I mentioned, particularly Buddhism and some Hindu teachers and some that are kind of hybrid teachers. And I think that those two things together, the content of the teachings and the open space of meditation, really allowed me to absorb and integrate that view with my own life experience.
Well, good.
And so now I don't have that formal practice, except for when we go to the prison. I consider that to be my sangha at this time in life. I've been in several over the course of some moves that I've made in different parts of Illinois and the country. But like you, I think as you become familiar with the effect and the feeling and the scent, sort of the space of meditation, it's something that you don't have to go sit on the pillow to touch on it, to draw it back out. And my primary teacher, Thich Nhat Hanh, really talks about meditating or having that meditative quality in everything we do.
Right.
But it takes practice. You have to become familiar with it. You have to become familiar with yourself, and what you said about touching into it and sort of calling it up. Thich Nhat Hanh says we have lived a long time in forgetfulness, and the practice of meditation is remembering that we forget, and that in that moment of remembering, it changes, it shifts. That's that touching into the space of meditation that can happen in the middle of any moment.
Yeah, that's a wonderful lesson. Now you mentioned earlier habit. How does that? Is that more or less what you consider to be a habit to go on?
No, I don't consider meditation to be a habit. I think that at the time that I was sitting daily, and I think that it can become, anything that we do repeatedly can become a habit.
Yeah,
But, you know, you and I were talking about habits, and human beings need habit.
right.
It's, I think.
Yeah,
I mean,
you'd have to relearn everything every day.
Well, I don't know that we
Seems
have to
like-
relearn it,
Yeah.
because there are you know, motor habits, there are
Right.
physical habits, and certainly there are mental and emotional habits as well. But I think that one thing that habits represent, and I've never really talked this over with anybody, but
Right.
a lot of habits represent our unconscious behavior. And meditation is about seeing through and being able to reach through that and transforming the unconscious behavior into being conscious. It's not that we can't do something over and over again on a regular basis, even at a regular time. But as the sutras say, it's being in the body when you're in the body, being in
Right.
the moment, being in the action. When you're in the action, that transforms it from being just sort of a mindless activity to being a mindful activity.
That's
And
good.
that quality is really what meditation, it nurtures and it unveils it,
Right,
you know.
right.
And it changes, it changes something very simple, anything very simple that we go through. Have you ever, I'm sure you have, that you've gone through the process of doing something and then realized that your mind was somewhere else.
Right, yes.
And say, well, I already did that, or what did I do, you know? When we
Yeah.
put something down and then can't find it, I
Right.
do that all the time.
Yes,
So, so
Uh,
that little switch is so critical.
Yeah.
And I think that meditation is a key to helping us remember quicker to pay attention.
good, good. Now, this isn't on the subject of meditation, but I think it would be, meditation would be quite beneficial. You work with kids, right?
I do. I have for
Could
20.
you tell us just a touch about that?
Well, I work at a Boys and Girls Club in Carbondale here, and before that I worked for 10 years in an outdoor camping program. Half of it was, or one of the places was with kids from inner city and families from inner city Chicago,
Wow,
and then the other half was with people that had disabilities,
I see.
children and adults with all types of disabilities, both physical and mental disabilities.
Wow,
So, and lots of them, lots of
Mhm.
people. I mean, at a time. So I just came from work at the Boys and Girls Club, and we had about 80 kids there, and staff, and noise, and
my goodness.
you know,
That-
multitasking. Which
Yes,
is a nice part.
that's a lot to keep organized.
Well,
you're to
I
be,
wouldn't claim that, but that we have it all organized.
It's, you're a hero in that sense. So the benefits you experience are both spiritual and physical, would you say, or?
Yeah, I wish they were more physical. I do walking meditation, not as often as I should probably for my general well-being, but I've had a lot of trouble with my knees. I don't get the physical
Right.
exercise that I used to get,
Yeah.
and I think that when I was in my younger days, in that period when I was studying and reading, but not really physically sitting on a pillow and meditating, I was doing other things that lent themselves to that sort of one-pointed concentration that served the same purpose to some extent. So, yeah, it has a lot of benefits, though. I think it keeps my humor fresh.
Yeah,
It gives me a broader perspective on problems and other people's emotions as well as my own, and not,
Yeah.
just that little bit of elbow room,
Right.
as Ram Dass used to say, just that little space that gives us room just to kind of let out one breath and realize that we're not, the situation doesn't dictate
right. Yeah, it
how
nurtures
we
understanding.
are,
Yeah.
right?
It helps out a lot. Well, Randy, thank you so much for stopping by, and I know you're very busy and you've had a long day. Thank you so much, and folks, I hope you get a lot out of this. This man is quite an experienced meditator, and we'll get back with you on our next video. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Bill.
Thank you.